and welcome to Read Becca. This is my weekly check-in on what I have read, what I'm currently reading, what I'm looking forward to reading, and maybe a little general life stuff. So let's get right into the books because I read a lot again and I had a great reading week. So the first thing I read was the 6th volume of Descender. This is a big epic space opera. It's set in a world where giant robots came and attacked humans, and this was in the past. So now we're in a world where there are many planets, but across all of humanity, really they are hunting robots. So that plays out through this whole storyline, but in this particular volume, I can't talk too much about the plot, but it does start out with a new backstory. So we had backstory pretty much through the entire first 3 volumes, and now all of a sudden we've got a new character, a new backstory, but it's great because it ties together everything that we've seen in the past of the story. And so I enjoyed that, and it's following this scientist who is off to explore space. He's going on this great adventure, and we see his life and how he changes as a result of that, and so that's really interesting. But then that takes up about the first 2 volumes, which is interesting because, or the first 2 issues of this volume, sorry. That's interesting because in volume 5, we ended on a complete cliffhanger. So it takes us 2 issues in here before we get back to the return of where we were left on that cliffhanger. So that was really propelled you forward. So I enjoyed the backstory though, and I felt like it gave us so much more understanding of what's going on than we had before. Then as well, I really like the way this concluded, so I can't really talk about that, but I do think it came together very well, very satisfying. It was great, so I'm super happy to have finished this one. It does end, after concluding the story here, it jumps forward 10 years and sets up the Ascender series that's coming after this. So this story is closed, but there's a new story following a new character in the future of this world. And as far as I understand, and based on the setup, it's a more magical story. So we know, inconsequentially to this story, this includes a lot of interplanetary travel. So at one point they stop at a planet where there's magic, and so we know it's just a thing on that planet. So I'm assuming we're going to return to that planet maybe, or be involved with the people of that planet, something like that. But yeah, I think it's more low-key magical stuff versus this big epic space opera. Maybe a hero's journey, possibly, based on the setup. So yeah, loved it. I'm glad to have another sequel and a series off of my docket. Woohoo! Next, I picked up The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig, and this was on my TBR for the month, and I finished it. I'm so excited. It was a great time. So it turned out to be very much more horror than I was prepared for. This had been billed as kind of crossing the line from horror, from thriller to horror, and it's very horror as far as I'm concerned. This follows a family. Nate, who is a cop, and Maggie, who is an artist, are the parents of Ollie, who is kind of a hyper-empathetic teenager. He's, I think, 15 at the start of this. And he's not doing well at school. Like, he gets picked on a lot for that hyper empathy. And he's hyper empathetic about everybody, really. It's people, it's animals, just everything. He's concerned about the state of the world. And so when Nate's father is dying, they inherit the house that he grew up in. And it's very much a discussion between them, and a difficult one because Nate's father was very abusive. So he's not sure he wants to go live in this house where he grew up and had all these bad memories, but they agree they can't really pass up this opportunity. It's going to be good for Oliver to get into a new school, and for Maggie to have her own space for her art. And so they go ahead and move into this house, but very, very quickly they realize things are not quite right there. And yeah, so I can't say too much more of the plot than that. Beyond it goes completely haywire from there. Nothing even remotely connected with that, other than that's the setup. And I enjoyed this one so much because it's very kitchen sink. Fantasy, horror, sci-fi, everything together. There is literal magic in here. There is a serial killer. So it's got all of these elements crammed together. And I won't say anything about the two really big supernatural elements that play in this, because those are what bind it together. I don't want to spoil that for you. But it's very different from most anything that I've seen. But I would kind of liken it to Castle Rock, the TV series, which is an adaptation of Stephen King's work. And it cobbles together a whole bunch of different works into a single story, where it's got a major thread, but then minor story plots are happening alongside, and they're all weaving together. And I loved that show. So I think this does that similar type of working, where it's got multiple things going on at once, and they're all coming together to make a single story. He so brilliantly drops in these little things that we don't really understand as they're happening, but then at the end you understand what happened and they come together. And so that's happening all throughout. So just really smart writing there. Another element of smart writing, I had mentioned in previous weekly catch-ups that this has a lot of animal violence for me, like a lot. And not super gruesome. So again, it worked for me because he doesn't linger on it. He just kind of mentions things that are happening and that's it. But he took it right up to the line for me. Literally, there was a moment that was on the line for me of, if something like this happens again, I can't read this. And that literally was the last time anything happened with an animal. And that was about a quarter of the way in, maybe a third of the way in. So he had this perpetually occurring and took it to the line and then dropped it and stopped, and knew exactly that point where he was dragging you along and keeping you going and pushing you to the edge. And then he moved on to pushing in other ways. He moved into the more paranormal stuff then. And so that was really interesting and neat writing on his part. As well, this tackles so much of those great themes with the father being abusive. That plays a role throughout this entire story. And so at the core of this story is very much about the rarity and power of breaking the cycle of abuse. Not quite literally, not literally in terms of like that resolving the story or anything, but that is at the heart of what's happening in this plot over and over again, is this cycle of abuse, people who are affected by the cycle of abuse, and how important it is to break that cycle. So really interesting stuff at multiple levels. I just loved it. So I think this was probably not quite a 5-star. I didn't love this as much as Wanderers, I guess I'll say. I did really enjoy this. I was quite surprised. This may have been my favorite of this month of the horror thrillers that I picked up. So quite liked that. Then we have another book for my TBR, The Turnout by Megan Abbott, and this is a ballet thriller. We are following Charlie, Marie, and Dara, and they are, Marie and Dara are sisters whose mother ran this ballet school, and now they run it together with Charlie, who was a student at the school that when his mother moved away, he just kind of wound up staying and living with them so that he could continue his ballet studies. And so now he and Dara are married, and they're all running the ballet school, and they are all getting ready for Nutcracker season in the winter. And so the plot, I don't know if I can even really talk about the plot. They're very busy because of the Nutcracker. There was a fire in their ballet studio, and now they've hired a contractor to get things repaired in the studio room that is damaged. And things go increasingly wrong with that. And I think that's about all I can say. Someone dies in the studio. We'll leave that there. I didn't like this. I have to say, I really didn't like it. The ballet, number one, doesn't feel like it's an element of the plot at all. feels like it's maybe backstory to establish the characters, and it's a device so that they're always busy. They're always trying to rush somewhere, or, you know, trying to help the girls that they're training or whatever. They're constantly being pulled in different directions. So it doesn't feel like it's an actual element of the plot, really. And then on top of that, the characters were so like cold. They were just completely cold to each other. And first half of the book is just them interacting, really, for the most part. Like nothing really tension-wise is happening, and there's nothing to like or connect with about them at all. There's no angst. They're just very cold to each other. And so we then do start understanding why they're so cold to each other a little bit. And then things go horribly wrong, obviously. And that drew me in a little, but it felt like maybe 4 separate books, really. There were so many different plots that didn't connect. So this was basically the opposite of the last book, where this one felt like it was trying to do these several things, but it didn't really connect all of them well. So it just felt very disconnected. And the writing didn't really work for me. The dialogue especially. So I marked something. So this is mostly inconsequential. This is just an interaction between 2 women. "I guess you're right," the woman said. "You blame everything on that one person. You think if that one person is gone, everything will be perfect and good." She slid her sunglasses back on. "But in the end, that one person is you." It's just that kind of writing all throughout, and it's so cheesy to me. Like, I know that works for some people, the hyper dramatic and kind of over the top, but it did not work for me. So I thought this was going to be my favorite from this TBR, because I love like ballet thrillers, and this just did not do it for me. So bummer. Then, because I needed something a little light, in between that I read a children's book. This is The Dress and the Girl by Camille Andros, and pictures by Julie Morstad. And this is just a short little story all about this little girl who is immigrating to America. And I think she's immigrating from Greece. Yeah, Greek islands. And the end papers are gorgeous. They're the fabric of the dress. So she loves her home and lives on the island. And then one day her family leaves on a boat to go to New York. And their trunk is lost, and so she loses her dress. But then as an adult, she spies the dress in a window and gets it for her daughter. And so it's all about having that memory and connection to your heritage in a way. And so I love that. It was very simple and quick and beautifully drawn, obviously. So as always, I pick up a lot of children's books just for the art, really, and enjoyed it so much. So that is the stuff that I read this week. In progress, I'm continuing on with God's War by Kameron Hurley. Now, if you saw the title of this, I mentioned I forgot that it's Dewey's weekend. I don't know how. I haven't really been paying attention to videos that much and seen announcements, I guess. But I'm feeling kind of crummy. We'll talk about that later. But I think I want to try to finish this weekend. So for the Deweys, I don't think I'm going to be able to do a 24 hours straight. I did get up this morning and read 120 pages of Book of Accidents. So that was my morning, and I think I can continue reading, but I'm not going to hit 24 hours straight. So I think I might try to do a 24 in 48, where you read for 24 hours over the course of 2 days. So I think I can probably do that. So we'll try. Very loose. I doubt I'll even make any videos, but I think that's what I'm going to do to semi-participate in Dewey's. So I want to try to finish this. I am maybe a third of the way through this whole chunk. There's a huge chunk that is all the next book. Huge chunk that's the next book. So this is only like 350 pages. And then I also want to get to Leave the World Behind by Rumaan. This is another thriller, so I think it's going to be pretty quick. And this is the large print pro tip for library users: if you want to get a bestseller that is not quite brand new, but is still in holds and stuff, check the large print. So this is 320 pages in large print, so I think this will be a very quick read. So those, I think, are the two that I want to get to for my next 2 days over this weekend. So I think that's all I'm going to talk about. I'm reading some other stuff. Oh, I do have an audiobook going. I'm maybe 80% through The Storyteller by Dave Grohl. I'm really enjoying it. He's fantastic. And obviously I picked the audio because he actually reads it himself. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. So away from the books now, I had mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago, that I was having like really bad acid reflux and stuff, and was kind of dealing with that with like an anti-inflammatory diet, and that was doing fine. But well, actually, sidebar, I had mentioned I really wanted macaroni and cheese, and since then I have discovered Tattooed Chef frozen meals. They have it at Target where I live, so probably check your Target. But they have cauliflower mac and cheese. It's not like cauliflower noodles, it's literal cauliflower, but it's actually really quite good. So I tried that and have really enjoyed that. So I've had one of those a couple times since then and really enjoyed them. So that hit the spot. But anyway, so I think I was not really knowing why that was happening, and so that was kind of frustrating. But I have since, I think, figured it out, that I've got a tooth back in my molars that is not great. I think I had a not great root canal on it after the dentist missed something, and that led to me having to get a root canal there, and that root canal that he did was, I think, potentially not great, and so it has caused me many problems. I had to have an apicoectomy, which is like a full-on jaw surgery, and so I think I was kind of ignoring low-grade pain there until all of a sudden this past week it really ramped up. It was extremely painful, and so it's infected again. So I'm going to have some additional dental work done here, but I'm on an antibiotic now. So I think that was probably going on at a low grade and just upsetting my whole system. And so I think that was causing the previous problem. So I think hopefully that's now dealt with in terms of being on the antibiotic. I am a person who tends to like or prefer to try and let your body fight it, you know, and so normally what I would do that, but yeah, this clearly was beyond that, and I had to resort to an antibiotic. So I've got a lovely 80 CFU probiotic waiting for when I finish this up, but I have not really been through this before with an antibiotic. Normally it is like I bounce back like a day after. I'm having, at that day after point, it definitely resolved the pain issue, specifically in that location. But now I'm having extreme headaches, like pressure kind of behind my eyes, that kind of thing, and just general body aching. So kind of overall not feeling great right now. So last night I actually was in bed at night and I watched one show and didn't want to watch anymore and was like ready for sleeping. So yeah, I was out really early, and then I didn't sleep in this morning, so I was still up before 8, but that was still extra sleep, like several hours extra sleep. So that's all fine. I'm fine, not a big deal. And I feel like I've talked about more like my body attacking me the past few weeks than ever. I literally don't remember the last time I was sick. So I'm not a sickly person, I swear. This is not typical at all. But so beyond that, in terms of what's been going on this week, I had a really stressful week at work. So I'm sure that did not assist with any of this. It was just very extreme stress. It was like 13-hour day a couple days this week. So yeah, not great. So I, however, happily was counting the hours yesterday because I'm now off work. So I've got a break for a week off. So I'm going to read a ton. Beyond this stuff that I mentioned for Dewey's, I have all those books that I picked up from the library last week, and hopefully I will get through all of them. I have 6 books to get through, and we'll see if I can actually make it through all 6 books, because that would be really, really cool. So I think in terms of stuff I was watching this week, I really was feeling very, very low energy about stuff. So like last night when I was watching, I watched Wall of Chefs. I think on Hulu, they dropped some of the US Food Network shows, like the popular ones, because I was previously watching Chopped a few months back and it disappeared. And I think they added a bunch of Canadian Food Network shows. I noticed there's several of them were Canadian, but so I got into this Wall of Chefs show, and it's like sets of 4 famous Canadian chefs who are judging home cooks as they go through 3 separate rounds, and it's really, really fun. I'm enjoying it. Clearly they think it's very high angst and like drama, and it's not. They're very nice to everybody. So yeah, it's one of those really, really low energy shows. Doesn't really have any drama to it. So I've enjoyed that one, and that's pretty much all I've been watching. I think I watched a little bit more of the final season of Veronica Mars, and I hadn't realized that this final season is a big jump in time, and so I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'm liking it still. I really have enjoyed this watch through of Veronica Mars, and I don't know what I'm going to get into after that. I really don't. I don't have, I mean, I have tons and tons of shows queued up, but I just am not feeling pulled to anything. I also, Shannon Riddler is a booktuber, but also talks about movies and stuff. And so there was, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now, a video where she talked about Michael Caine doing Sleuth. And it's something he did when he was young. And there are 2 main characters, and the young main character is who he played, but then it was remade more recently, and he played the old main character, and so he has played, both primary character roles. Well, I was able to get a copy of that, of a new one. I haven't been able to find the old one easily accessible, so I may have to find that one, but I really wanted to watch that because of how she was talking about that. So I've got that on the docket for this weekend. I also, I have talked about my gaming and how I tend to get in ruts with gaming, and so I have been obsessively continuing to play Train Valley on Steam. I've been playing the end game, so each of the levels, I guess, has multiple challenges to it, and the last challenge is just to get a maximum score, basically. And so I've been playing all of those maximum scores and trying obsessively to get new higher ones. And I've already gotten to the point where I'm probably the highest I can possibly get. And so I'm not actually succeeding. So I've been playing all week and have not gotten any new high scores at all. So I need to stop that. I went ahead and I've sunk so much time into this game that I went ahead and purchased Train Valley 2. So I will start playing Train Valley 2 this week probably. So hopefully I'll get loads more time out of that. But I should move on to other games, because this is like a really repetitive game, and it's just a train building game where you launch off trains from different stations and beat different challenges, stuff for launching extra trains, that sort of thing. But it's fun. I really like it. In terms of recommendations, so we had some really exciting stuff this week. There was an announcement for the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize that's going to start in 2022. So that is specifically going to be for people who are really creating imaginative fiction and really innovative, I think. But it specifically is going to be targeting underrated authors. So no big name authors. You're only eligible once. So it's specifically looking to highlight new authors, I think, or underrated authors. So that's one that I think I'm very much going to be picking up, the entire short or long list, however they wind up doing it, the nominees, and reading, because it sounds so in my wheelhouse. And of course I love Le Guin, so yeah, that one sounds fabulous to me. Then there was the winners of the Mythopoeic Award were announced, and as usual they had a really varied short list, and nothing really noteworthy to me in terms of the winners of the fiction categories. But the nonfiction categories were really interesting, because the nonfiction and essay list were all things I had not heard of before, and several things sounded very, very interesting. So I'll link that down below as well so you can check that out, but I think I will be looking into some of those more. And then on terms of fun stuff, I have Bernadette Banner. Bernadette Banner is a seamstress, I guess, or she does sewing, but she makes like historically accurate clothing. So really, really detailed, high intensity stuff. And she did a video of trying out Halloween costumes with her guinea pig. And so it was adorable. Mostly it's her guinea pig getting out of these costumes, but they rated all of the costumes based on his getting out of them. So yeah, it was just a delight to watch, a little joy for your day. So I highly recommend checking out that video. I think that is it. That's where we're gonna leave it for my week. Thank you all so much for joining me for this long video. I wonder did people other than me notice that it was Dewey's weekend? Do you have big plans for the Dewey's Readathon? If you are doing it, you're midway through about now, so good luck with the second half. Hopefully you will not be too tired tomorrow. I think that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Reached cuddling weather. Gumbo.